A mysterious teenager arrives in a small town with the intention of living a normal life while hiding a dark secret. Upon arriving in Conrad, Louise advises Rufus to blend into his new surroundings. When he worries that some people might recognize him, the old woman assures him that no one remembers who he is. After this, Louise walks into the middle of the road and is struck by a truck. Soon, Sheriff Hugh arrives and asks Rufus about his relationship with the old woman, but the teenager cannot answer. Noticing the boy's state of mind, the sheriff takes him home despite the initial disapproval of his wife, Jennifer. Later in the bathroom, Rufus strangely submerges himself in the bathtub, yet he does not drown. Hugh catches him and advises him to take off his clothes and clean himself. Afterwards, Hugh visits his friend Joe, a veterinarian, whom he had asked to keep Louise's body for a while. The veterinarian informs him that he found a scar on the old woman's temple, suggesting she may have been lobotomized. While sitting at the top of a tree, Rufus meets Tracy, a talkative teenage girl from across the street. She invites him to her house to play a game. Tracy sets the rules, draws an imaginary line, and asks him not to cross it. Then she takes off her clothes and asks him to do the same, trying to seduce him. Tracy crosses the line, but just as she is about to kiss him, the doorbell rings and the moment is interrupted. Meanwhile, an investigator named Aaron arrives in town and checks into a motel. As he unpacks, he reveals that he has a gun, making it clear he is hunting someone. At home, Jennifer finds Rufus playing with her deceased son's military airplane model. The teenager apologizes, oddly mentioning that it is the same model he used to build near his home in Seattle, which confuses Jennifer, so she asks him to change his clothes. When Hugh returns home that night, he tells his wife that he has read reports about missing youths. Jennifer suspects Rufus might be one of them, as the teenager mentions he once lived in Seattle. She also notes that Rufus refuses to reveal his last name, but points out that he has a heart condition called situs inversus and a temperature of 68 degrees, which convinces her that he is different. While spending time together, Tracy asks Rufus what he would wish for if a genie appeared. Before he can answer, Tracy's ex-boyfriend, Clay, arrives and invites her to a weekend party. When she refuses and walks away, her ex throws a rock at her, causing Rufus to react, but the teenager ends up severely injured and unable to move. Taking advantage of the situation, Clay takes Tracy in his car and abuses her. As this happens, Rufus suddenly regains strength. His fangs and claws appear, revealing that he is a vampire. He pulls Clay out of the car, scratches his face, and tries to bite him. Witnessing this, Tracy hits Rufus to knock him unconscious and tells Clay to leave. Unknown to them, Aaron is nearby, recording everything on his recorder. When he regains consciousness, Rufus walks Tracy home. As she turns away, he finally reveals his wish for the genie, to be someone else. When he asks Tracy what she would wish for, she admits she would wish for him, which leads them to kiss. When Rufus returns to Hugh's house, he explains to the sheriff that his clothes are stained with blood because of a nosebleed. Despite the explanation, Hugh reminds him that he is a guest in the house and expects him to return at a reasonable hour. The next morning, Tracy and Rufus go to the library to learn more about vampires. Tracy checks Rufus's fangs, but finds nothing unusual. She realizes he is not a typical vampire, as he has a reflection and does not burn in daylight. As she turns the page, Rufus sees a picture of a dead vampire with a wooden stake, which unsettles him. Tracy explains that stakes are the only way to kill a vampire. However, Rufus denies being one, insisting they are not real, although Tracy believes otherwise because of what she saw the day before. Later that day, Hugh plays catch with Rufus, but the boy throws the ball too hard. Jennifer suddenly intervenes and takes away her deceased son's baseball glove. After this, Rufus climbs onto the roof of the veterinary clinic to make snow angels, then jumps down without getting hurt. Seeing Joe leave, Rufus sneaks into the clinic to speak with Louise's lifeless body, telling her he likes the town because he has made a new friend. Suddenly, Tracy, who has followed him, speaks from the doorway, asking if he has cried, but he only responds by asking if he should have. That night, Jennifer offers Rufus dinner, which he politely refuses. Worried because he has not eaten since arriving, she reminds him that he needs to eat to avoid getting sick. However, when the teenager sees Hugh put ketchup on his tofu burger, he suddenly decides to try it and adds some to his plate. That night, Rufus goes out and watches Clay from a distance. Later, he vomits in Tracy's bathtub, revealing that the ketchup made him sick. That same night, Hugh learns from Jennifer that Rufus has decided to sleep in the snow fort Tracy helped him build in the front yard. When the sheriff worries that the boy might get pneumonia, Jennifer assures him he will not stay outside for long. Suddenly, Hugh hears the doorbell. When he opens the door, he finds Clay, who is looking for Rufus. Hugh tells him everyone is already asleep, and Clay leaves. However, before going, the sheriff notices the bandage on the teenager's face, which leads him to explain that it is just from playing around. The next morning, Jennifer and Rufus go to the butcher shop. Before entering, Jennifer reminds him to be careful with Clay and Tracy, since they are older than him. Inside, Rufus sees the butcher cutting meat and learns that Jennifer plans to prepare steak for dinner that night. While she waits for the meat, Rufus notices Clay by the door, leading them to talk privately. The older boy warns him that in this town, secrets cannot be kept. Afraid that his secret might be exposed, Rufus heals his facial wound by applying his own blood to it, though he suggests keeping the bandage to avoid suspicion. Rufus tries to befriend Clay by inviting him to dinner, but the older boy, who is in his final year of high school, explains that he cannot be seen with him because his friends would not understand. That night, a hungry Rufus sneaks out and heads to a truck stop, where he finds a driver repairing a vehicle. Upon seeing him, the driver apologizes and explains that, due to company policy, he cannot give him a ride. However, he asks for his help, requesting that he bring him a wrench from the red case. Rufus agrees, but when he is in the passenger seat, the man gets into the driver's seat and suddenly tries to take advantage of him. As a result, the teenager transforms into a vampire and feeds on the driver's blood, ending his life. The next morning, Hugh discovers the empty truck at the stop and receives a call from his colleague, who informs him that they found a fingerprint match for Louise. Meanwhile, Rufus and Tracy watch from behind the police line, wondering what happened. During dinner, Hugh is surprised when Rufus begins to eat raw meat. They talk about what happened at the truck stop, which leads the teenager to step in, saying there must be a body to prove that a murder occurred. That night, Rufus meets Tracy again, revealing that he was involved in the trucker's death while digging a grave. He defends himself by saying the man provoked him, which is why he did it. At the police station, Hugh reviews the file on the fingerprint match for the old woman, discovering her identity. Meanwhile, Rufus asks Tracy to help him dispose of the driver's body in a remote part of town. She agrees to help, but he promises not to do something like that again. When Rufus returns home, Hugh questions him about why he was with the oldest woman in the world. When Rufus refuses to reveal anything, Hugh reads from the file, revealing that Louise had been admitted to an institution as a patient diagnosed with paranoid delusions. When the sheriff suggests that this might explain Louise's behavior before her death, Rufus defends her, mentioning that they made holes in her head. Despite this, Hugh asks Rufus about his identity, but the teenager keeps insisting that he does not know. Rufus then admits that Louise helped him escape and advised him to adapt, but he did not know how. Hearing this, Jennifer steps in, asking who he was running from. The teenager reveals that it was from people who hurt him. Avoiding continuing the discussion, Rufus leaves the house and walks for a while. On the street, he meets Aaron, who offers him a ride in his car. Before accepting, the teenager warns the stranger that his father is the chief of police. Even so, he gets into the car, and the man drops him off at his destination. Once Rufus leaves, Aaron pulls a file from the back seat, revealing that he is looking for the teenager. That night, Rufus stays at Tracy's house, leading to a romantic encounter. However, the next morning, Tracy's mother, Vicky, returns from Las Vegas and catches the teenagers in bed together. As a result, Vicky warns Jennifer, threatening that if she finds Rufus in her house again, she will tear him apart. Jennifer later speaks privately with Rufus, emphasizing that actions have consequences. She explains that Tracy needs to be loved and would do anything to find love. However, she adds that this also means Tracy will get hurt, and it will take her a long time to recover. Hearing this, Rufus explains that he also wants to be loved. Meanwhile, Aaron meets with Hugh, who takes him to the veterinary clinic. The investigator examines Louise's body and confirms that she is 107 years old. However, the sheriff remains silent when Aaron asks if Louise had been traveling with a teenager. Before leaving, the investigator gives the sheriff his business card. At home, Jennifer opens up to Rufus about how her son, Adam, died. She shares that Hugh had kept a service gun in a box in his closet, but Adam found it and accidentally shot himself. This led Hugh to blame himself. Although Jennifer initially felt angry, she now recognizes that it was simply bad luck. Meanwhile, Aaron takes photos around town when he notices Rufus behind him. He reveals that he is there to uncover the town's secrets and that he knows he is not the sheriff's son. Later that day, Rufus spends time with Tracy and they come across a sign. Since Rufus cannot read, Tracy reads it aloud. "Welcome to Conrad. We support our troops." Upon hearing this, the teenager expresses his dislike for wars. At the police station, Hugh's colleague, Chet, reads Louise's file and shares that in 1934 the old woman escaped with 12 other state inmates. All were captured except Louise and a minor. Meanwhile, Hugh looks up information about Aaron using the business card he was given. He discovers that Aaron holds degrees in mythology and archaeology and is part of the research team at Bristol Anderson Pharmaceuticals. Hugh also realizes that the company's founding directors, Thomas and Patrick, are dead. Hearing this, Chet digs deeper into the file, discovering that those directors were involved in the institution where Louise had been admitted. Suddenly, an officer from another station calls to inform them that the missing truck driver has been found. Meanwhile, Rufus asks Tracy about Adam. However, she only reveals that she knows about his death, which happened a long time ago. Suddenly, Rufus asks Tracy why she had not told him before that she had dated Clay, something Jennifer had revealed to him. Tracy feels insulted when he asks how many others she has dated, eventually admitting she has dated half the town. She then tells him not to confuse intimacy with love, but he insists that he wishes she had never dated Clay. That night, Rufus and Jennifer work on fixing Adam's airplane. Suddenly, Jennifer suggests calling Tracy, but he feels he did nothing wrong. While repairing the plane, the teenager accidentally cuts his finger, which causes him to pull away. Meanwhile, Vicky talks to Tracy, who admits she is already over Rufus. When Tracy asks her mother if she loved her father, Vicky confirms that she did. Tracy then asks why she left him, and Vicky admits that the things she once loved about him became the things she hated. That night, Rufus visits Clay, who invites him to play inside the batting cage. They begin to get to know each other better. The older teenager shares the story of his mother, who was never happy, and his father, who put too much pressure on him. The next morning, Clay visits Rufus and invites him to play again that night. When Tracy sees this, she gets angry at Rufus for spending time with someone who had previously tried to take advantage of her. Knowing she had been with half the town, Rufus doubts her accusation, which causes Tracy to slap him. Later, Rufus practices his throwing skills. When he returns home, Jennifer allows him to borrow Adam's glove. Meanwhile, Hugh and Chet finally find the missing driver's body at a construction site. That afternoon, Rufus plays with Joe, throwing snowballs at him while he is on the roof. Seeing this, Aaron approaches Rufus, telling him he should be in Conrad. Upon learning that the man works for Bristol, Rufus hesitates to trust him, since he had worked for the late doctor who once betrayed him. After this, Rufus meets with Clay, who tells him that someone thinks he is interested in men after seeing them together in the batting cage. When Rufus insists they did nothing, Clay admits he wishes they had. Later, Rufus opens up to Clay about his past, explaining that Louise would not let him go out because he was too dangerous. While eating a raw burger, he adds that Jennifer wants him to go to school, but he is afraid. When Rufus asks why it is hard to be his friend, Clay explains that it is not just hard, it is impossible. After investigating Aaron's identity, Hugh confronts him, suspecting he has come to Conrad for Rufus. He then questions the investigator about the teenager's identity, but Aaron simply tells him to ask the boy directly. That night, Clay practices alone in the batting cage. Suddenly, Aaron appears to question him and warn him about Rufus, telling him that the teenager is innocent and that he is too old for him. Meanwhile, Rufus goes to Tracy's house, but Vicky intervenes, suggesting he give her daughter space. However, after he leaves, Vicky realizes what her daughter sees in Rufus and encourages her to go after him. Then Rufus goes to the batting cage, but does not find Clay there. While he is picking up balls, Clay suddenly appears and shoots him. At that exact moment, Tracy arrives and repeatedly hits her ex with a bat, breaking his bones. Later, Hugh and Chet arrive at the scene to investigate, since Clay refuses to reveal what really happened. Shortly after, Aaron appears and reveals Rufus's true identity to the sheriff. He presents the file, showing that the teenager has records from 1972 and 1927, indicating that he is over 100 years old. Aaron explains that he has come to retrieve Rufus, as he is considered property of Bristol Pharmaceuticals. He plans to use the teenager for future research due to his ability to self-regenerate, believing it could lead to health breakthroughs for everyone. Despite this, Hugh tells him to leave town. Meanwhile, Rufus meets with Tracy, who admits she could not sleep the night before because of what she did to Clay. Suddenly, Hugh steps in, confronting Rufus about his and Tracy's role in Clay's injuries. In response, Rufus explains that he thought Clay was his friend, but he shot him. Then the teenager quickly heads to the library and tears out the page about how to kill vampires. After that, he returns home for dinner. Aaron, planning to leave Rufus alone, prepares his weapon at the motel. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door, but no one is there. When he turns around, he sees the tearful teenager inside the room, begging him to leave town. Aaron mentions that Louise is gone and that he cannot handle everything alone. However, the vampire makes it clear he refuses to return to the institution. Even so, the man explains that Louise was not protecting him, but rather protecting others from Rufus. The vampire refuses to believe it, while blood drips from his fist. He says he likes being in Conrad. Aaron insists he return home to prevent hurting others, promising not to mistreat him like before. Meanwhile, at the batting cage, Hugh informs Chet about what he has learned regarding Rufus's identity. The next morning, Hugh sneaks into Aaron's motel room, searches his belongings, and finds Rufus's file. As he examines it, he discovers more images showing what had been done to Rufus at the institution. At the same time, Jennifer returns home and finds Rufus with Aaron. She confronts the stranger, who explains his long history with the teenager. When she refuses to let him take Rufus, Aaron insists the boy is not her son. Jennifer continues to stand her ground, which causes the man to push her, triggering the vampire's fury. In his anger, Rufus reveals his fangs and claws, ending Aaron's life. Shortly after, Hugh arrives and discovers what has happened. Despite this, the sheriff orders Chet to dispose of Aaron's belongings and burn the old photos of the teenager. Meanwhile, the couple adopts Rufus for good and sends him to school. And with this, the movie ends. Don't forget to check out my channel, subscribe, and catch all the latest videos.